There are certain pillars of defense in FIFA which you can combine to form a strong unbreakable defense on the game. Defense is an art and consists of basic pillars of which when you lack one, your defense is not strong enough to face tough opponents. So just help yourself and follow the video up to the end. A lot of FIFA coaches tells us about Jockey. It's where you hold L2 for normal jockey, or L2 plus or 2 for speed jockey, then you just position your defender in front of the opponent's player and just react to his movements. But this is not enough when you face tough opponents. They know how to trick you and you react to a certain direction, then they go to the opposite way like in this example. Some players have the tendency of just following the opponent's player, not cutting the passing lanes or covering space, but just jockey and follow the ball holder. This technique is good especially defending one-on-one in the box, but it makes you so reactive and good opponents can fake multiple directions to create their way and score. So the best jockey technique to defend is the push and pull. This technique has many effective ways to be used and it's very consistent. How do we push and pull? When approaching the opponent's player, we first figure out his options like space and pass, so we either first close up the option then we run to the ball holder, or we first pretend like approaching the ball holder, then we close up the options, and most of the time it depends on the situation. Before we look at different ways to use it, let's see how you can avoid overcommitting. Some players make a mistake like he can sprint to a certain direction and his mind totally forgets that the opponent might change direction or pass. So to be able to react quick enough, but remember we don't want to be the one reacting, that's why we use push and pull technique. In this case we are the one who first make our movement, so to avoid committing it's all about your finger coordination with the jockey system controls. You have to understand these basic, simple secret logic. L2, or LT, normal jockey is to contain the opponent. Why we contain? To keep our player in position and at the same time applying little pressure. Then L2 plus or 2, the speed jockey, we speed jockey for two reasons. 1, to approach the ball holder, in this case to be able to react to any slight change of direction, then speed jockey to cut passing lanes. Lastly R2, to sprint, we sprint to close up space quickly. So to understand more about this, look at these examples. Here my opponent passes to his player inside my box, I immediately hold L2 to contain him because he has this passing lane, and I can't risk covering it because I will be leaving him space to attack my goal. As he makes his turns, I hold speed jockey to cut this passing lane, then still speed jockeying I approach him and I win the ball. Then this one my opponent is in the box having this deadly pass, as usual I want to make my move before him, I speed jockey to close this pass, but I know he will try to dribble into this space, so again I speed jockey and approach him. Even here I tried to close this pass, but I was too late, so I sprint to close up space quickly. Here I speed jockey to approach the opponent. He takes a good safe first touch, I see this pass and I speed jockey to close it. Even here using the same logic, I speed jockey to cut this passing lane, but I realize that there's plenty of space left on this side and the opponent's players are running that way. I expect a through pass, I release the jockey button and I sprint to close up space. Here my opponent passes to his striker and I realize a big space here, so I sprint to close it, then I speed jockey to approach him. But again there's another big space the other side, so I release the jockey button and sprint to close up that space as fast as I can. The last example, here I first sprint to cover up space of the running player, but even speed jockeying to cut this passing lane, I sprint again to close up space, the pass opens and I again speed jockey to close it and I take the ball. But all of the examples you have seen I use the push and pull technique to be steps ahead of the opponent. You can be good at jockeying and you have good skills when defending one-on-one, but if you can't switch players quickly in the right time, then your skills are useless because you will always be one step behind and your team cannot apply pressure to the opponent, meaning you're giving too much time and freedom to your opponent to do whatever he wants. He passes the ball and even receive it, and for you at the moment you haven't reacted quickly enough to select the nearest defender. Here the opponent can figure out the perfect passes and space to take. So you as a defender, you have to follow the ball's direction and switch to the player near the ball and apply pressure. And this constant player switch technique we normally use the L1 or LB to switch to the nearest defender. What this does is that it applies pressure constantly to the opponent, because you're not giving him breathing space, every angle he turns there's pressure. Then beside the L1 player switch which selects the nearest defender around the ball, we have the right analog switch. This switches to any defender all over the pitch, and it gives you freedom to select to any defender you want and control him. We shall get the in-depth tutorial about the right analog switch, but for now let's look at it in a detailed way. A lot of players knows how the right stick switch works, unless it's your first days playing the game. We normally use the right stick switch to select the player where L1 switch is limited. So like selecting players from long distances, L1 switches to the nearest defender around the ball, but if you want to select to this player, then we have to use the right stick switch. We switch to the furthest defender to mark the opponent's available option, or close the space for incoming through pass. Second man press is the tool you need to apply more pressure to your opponent while defending. So how can we use the second man press in an effective way? If you don't know how to second man press is where you hold R1 or RB, and the green icon appears on the second player, and this player can attack the opponent's ball holder at the same time while you control another player. We can use the second man press to cut the passing lane at the same time applying pressure to the ball holder. For example here, opponent passes to his full back, I right stick switch to my furthest defender and mark his winger, at the same time holding the second man press to send this player to apply some pressure. After positioning my defender I switch back and I approach the ball holder myself because the second man press don't tackle the opponent unless you dribbled into its path. When we right stick switch to the furthest player to mark the opponent's player or cut that passing lane, or close up the big space for the incoming dangerous through pass, here the opponent can read it and attempt to take his time on the ball, to either change direction, or look for another free pass options. So using the second man press here, we send our nearest defender to press the ball holder while we control the furthest defender. Here the opponent doesn't get that much time to look for the perfect options, and make sure that you switch back and press him by yourself. Then we can use the second man press to involve the nearest defender into play, especially if the opponent is dribbling near or between your defenders. Here you can control both of them to pressure the opponent by use of the second man press. So as we looked at these pillars, but you have something important to understand, FIFA is a game of reaction. The faster you react than your opponent, the big advantage you have over him. So these mechanics you cannot learn them from just one day, it takes time for you to start implementing them into your gameplay. A lot of players after watching the tutorial he moves to the game thinking that he can learn jockey and second press, even players switching just in a single day. The truth is that you will be forgetting these mechanics. You can be jockeying well, but at the moment you're not second man pressing. Again, when you remember second man pressing, then you're not switching players constantly. Again, when you second man press well, even switching players perfectly, but you're not defending well one-on-one. So these mechanics you need to write them down such that when you play your games you be looking at them and remember. Time will come when you're used to them and they have become second nature. So that's it for today, I'm out.